Hello, and welcome to the Mills Pets Podcast, Episode 2. I realized the first episode of this podcast was incredibly sad. I think just about the saddest topic I could talk about because it wasn't just about losing a pet, but about losing the possibility of potentially ever having that type of pet again, which is a loss upon a loss. I thought this episode needs to just be happy-go-lucky stuff. Let's switch gears and try to focus on happy things. What I'm going to be talking about is the types of pets I've had throughout my lifetime. I had pet people as parents, and I'm so grateful because they were pretty open to me having different pets that I decided that I wanted to have. I've had so many pets that I have accidentally named to the same name, which is Ollie. So yeah, I've run out of names, guys. The pets I've had cover decades of time. So for example, I'm going to mention a goldfish living in a bowl. That is not an acceptable way to house a fish, but it used to be how people did. Times have changed, and as years go by, we learn better care for animals. This is not a care podcast, but rather memories from over many years' time. So in doing this, I decided I'm going to go alphabetically. I'm not trying to rank different types of animals or talk about which ones fit my lifestyle better or anything like that. I just want to keep it really positive. I'm only going to share happy memories, and because of that, I want to say that this is not trying to convince you to get any of these pets. This isn't going to be a balanced view where I talk about pros and cons. I'm just sharing some memories that I have. Brine shrimp. There's a common saying these days that I personally agree with, which is that there are no beginner pets, there are no starter pets. However, I would make an exception with brine shrimp. I think they are fairly easy to take care of, and in fact, you're probably most likely to find them in with children's toys because they start out as little eggs that you put in water and they hatch, and then you have these teeny tiny little swimming brine shrimp. I've also tried another type of shrimp, but it didn't live long enough for me to have a personal opinion about it. But with these, I think they're fun. They're most magical when you're a kid, and that's when I had my first sea monkeys, but I have since had them other times, including generic ones. I didn't really notice a difference between generic and name brand, but they are kind of fun if you just want a small pet and if you have good eyesight enough to see them. Cats. Well, that certainly shows that this is alphabetical because I'm going from brine shrimp to cats here. That's a big jump. Okay, I really love cats. I was raised by a cat person, and so I have had cats for most of my life, or I should say a cat or two cats for most of my life. But even then, I've only had six because that's one of the things I love about them is that they tend to live a pretty decent amount of time. And I love that about them. Another thing I love about cats is that they are very independent and they lead their own lives. I do not have outdoor cats, but when I was a kid, I didn't have any say over the matter. And one of our cats was indoor outdoor, and he just did his own thing. He would hang out with opossums, which was totally not safe or good, but that's what he would do. And we were told by neighbors who lived behind us that he would go to their house and to the back door, I guess, and ask for them to let out their cat who he was friends with. So he was just leading his own life and doing whatever he wanted. And we just kind of wondered what he did all day. In fact, I did not understand people's stereotypical view of cats because my cats have always been more ones that love people and, yeah, just different than what people think. However, one of my current cats is the stereotypical cat, I think, that people who don't like cats think of. And it has taken many years of just being really, really patient with her and trying my best to have a friendship with her. Getting a second cat was one of the best things I ever did for her because she had someone to play with and be a cat with. Ferret. This is the only animal that is going to be a singular in this podcast because I only ever had one. I can't really talk about them in general terms. But I do remember that she was incredibly playful. Something cute that she would do, I think all ferrets do, is kind of jump up and down and go duk duk cute. But my favorite thing about her was that she knew how to swim, and she would swim around in the bathtub, which was really fun to watch. Fish. I have had all sorts of fish, including various aquarium attempts, but my favorite fish of all time, I think, would be goldfish. I lived during a time when people were practically giving them away and unfortunately not giving you the right type of care instructions. So I got a fish that lived in a goldfish bowl. She was involved in a car accident. Don't worry, she was not the one driving, but she was in a car accident where our car was totaled and she lived through it and she lived for 11 years. Frogs. I've had different kinds of frogs, but a couple fun memories. One of them was a tree frog, and my childhood cat liked to sit and watch him eat his crickets. It was just fun to see. I guess it would be three species interacting there, but the crickets didn't get the good part of this story. My favorite frog of all time was probably my African clawed frog. This is an aquatic frog, and if you think of an African aquatic frog that you've seen in pet stores, it's probably a different frog. These are a little bit harder to obtain, and I don't think I've ever seen them in a pet store. It's hard to know. But anyway, they need a really big tank with a filter, the whole 9 yards. They're kind of a bigger pet to take care of. But he was really fun because you could tell he was a male based off his shape, and he would make croaking sounds underwater. So it's just kind of neat to every once in a while hear him vocalizing. Gerbils. I've had four gerbils, but my favorite pair were definitely the first two that I got. I took the effort to find a reputable breeder, and she had bred her gerbils back to back so that there was a slightly older litter and a slightly younger litter. The older sister always treated her little sister like her little sister. They always had that relationship, and it was just so cute. The older one would just like baby her and spoil her and let her have her way. Anyway, gerbils will do things like boxing and wrestling each other and grooming one another and making cute little sounds. Something that made my first set of gerbils extra special is that they were apparently related to gerbils who were photographed for a care book. It was so neat to have that book, look at the photos, and wonder if my gerbils were related to the ones in the pictures. Guinea pigs. They are such a part of my heart because I had my first guinea pig from the time I was 9 to 18 years old. And this was during a time when people did not realize that they did better living together with their own kind. So she was a single guinea pig for all that time. I was so upset when she got sick that I said, I will never have a guinea pig ever again. They're all going to be just like her, and it's going to make me sad. So I didn't have one for a while. I kind of switched over to being a rabbit person, but I very quickly realized that I missed having a guinea pig. And I'm so glad that I gave guinea pigs another chance because I have had, I believe, 15 guinea pigs. And I will tell you, not a one of them has been remotely similar to my first guinea pig or each other. Even the two I have right now are pretty much opposites of each other. Hamsters. Hamsters are nocturnal, but they are very industrious little creatures. I feel like a lot of the fun that you get from having a hamster is just seeing what they've been up to when you were not watching them. For example, they will stash their food in different places and they'll make these really elaborate nests to sleep in. Newts. I had, I believe, three newts, but I don't remember them too well, unfortunately. My brother is a Monty Python fan, and if you are too, you may get this reference. He named my first two newts Monty and Python. I started writing notes down about my pets years ago, and I had written down that one of them laid eggs. I don't even remember that, so it's a good thing I wrote down notes. Parrots. Parrots are all very different from one another, so I'm going to share about each species I've had separately. My first parrot was a budgie or budgerigar. There are all sorts of parakeets, so it's more accurate to call her a budgie, but she's what you would think of when you think of a stereotypical parakeet. I was so upset I could not tame her because budgies are not hand raised like larger parrots, at least for the most part. And she would just fly away and just wasn't interested in me at all. A friend was visiting with her family, and I shared with her that my parakeet was not tame. So she spent that time that they were here with my parakeet, and she had her tame by the time they left. My Senegal parrot I had for most of my life. I think she was probably the smartest pet I've ever had. She was so intelligent that she even named me and my mom as well. We had a really strong bond because most parrots tend to bond with one person, which unfortunately was also the situation with my Fisher's lovebird Molly. She had been rehomed from a female's home, and as an adult, I wonder if that's why she firmly bonded with a male who was my dad. My dad, however, was a busy working man. I wanted Molly to bond with me, but my Senegal parrot was intensely jealous of her. So the main thing I remember about having Molly was the soap opera like relationship situation we had going on. Rabbits. They are the very last pet on my list. People tend to think that they are laid back and snuggly, but they usually don't like to be held in the way that you stereotypically see them being held. They're playful and really intelligent. I had one rabbit who would play basketball. I would use my hands to make a hoop, and she would pick up a ball and put the ball in the makeshift hoop. Another one would carry a little fleece blanket around in her mouth when she was little. Those are some of my general impressions and memories of the pets I've shared my life with. What types of pets have you had? Please share in the comments section. If you enjoyed this episode of the Mills Pets podcast, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for listening. Bye!